What's up, guys? Useless Skills here. Today we're going to go over the Ahsoka series. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to review it with my system initially, with the trailer playing as usual. And then I'm going to let you guys know when I'm going to be talking about spoilers. I'm going to talk spoilers a little bit right after the stuff. So, let's just review and then spoilers so that you know, right? And I'll put a disclaimer so that you know when the spoilers are starting. Righty. So, also, I hope this is not too loud. Somebody told me to just hold the mic up to my face so that you guys can hear me better, and that's what I'm going to try to do. Anyway, let's go. Ahsoka series, Disney Plus, and go. So, story, plot, and premise. It's okay. It's okay. It could be written a little better. I'm not gonna lie. I'll tell you why in the spoiler section of what I feel. But the story, plot, and premise, it was all right. Let's give it a star. Why not? The sound design, score, it's all right. it's all right. You know, like if I could give half stars, let me give half stars. Cause there was the one track, but I don't know. There's not really a memorable score here that I can remember, really. It's just all right. But all the sound is good, I didn't have a problem with the sound. So whatever, star. Sure. Cinematography. Oof. There are some scenes that are really good, and there are some scenes that you can tell the budget. But for the most part, I guess it's all right. So I guess star for cinematography. Acting. The actors are pretty good. For the most part, again, it's just, I gotta give half stars for all these things. Directing, sheesh. Also, okay, some episodes I question, some episodes I do question. So, let's see. Because it's a series and not a movie, let's go half stars all around. So, half 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can't, I guess half of 5, right? So, well, no, let's give it a full score for sound, right? Because it was all right. Sound was all right. It did sound good. Even though I don't remember a memorable score, it was still a good sounding series. It didn't have a problem with dialogue or anything like that. So I'll give it a 3.5. Yeah, 3.5 is pretty good. 3.5 for the series. Yeah, 3.5. It's good. If you are a Star Wars fan, especially a specific type of Star Wars fan, like if you watch the animated series, Clone Wars, Rebels, you're definitely, Bad Batch, you're going to love this, probably. If you're, not that into the Star Wars, this might not be the series for you, I'm not going to lie. I would still, recommend Mandalorian for somebody that's maybe watched some of the Star Wars or all the Star Wars movies and still wants a little more Star Wars. I would go Mandalorian. I wouldn't go Ahsoka, and I definitely wouldn't go Book of Boba Fett. But let's get into spoilers. So 3.5. That is the assessment for the series. Do with that what you will. Now, my issue with the Ahsoka series. So, I love Baylan right here. This character. I love Baylan. Love him. I love the girl character too. Can't remember her name. The Siths, basically, of the series. They should have been the main villains of the series, to be honest. And, this trailer will have you believe they are, but they're not. So if you've watched the cartoons, the animations, the Star Wars animation, Rebels, if you've watched Clone Wars, mostly Rebels, I guess, you know who Thrawn is, and Thrawn is the big bad of this series. And this is, in a way, I'm going to say, a 5th season of Rebels, right? Not even, I think, Clone Wars. Or I guess Clone Wars and Rebels, the next season, if those shows melded together, it would be this, right? This Ahsoka series. So, Ahsoka, I like Ahsoka. She's a good character. I've seen some of the Clone Wars. Well, let me start with the trajectory of how I watched this series. So, initially, I watched the Clone Wars 100 years ago, back when those were actually first coming out on TV, and I was a kid. And then on Disney Plus, I caught up a little bit, and then I kind of weaned off. And then I watched, the last 2 episodes just so I could say I finished the series. But I, skipped, a bunch of stuff. So, I like Ahsoka. At least the cartoon version, she's very like she's very, I don't know how to explain it. Very Luke Skywalker, young, gun ho, wants to do good, doesn't know if she's doing good, kind of plays with the dark side and the light a little bit, but ultimately is a good character, like not a Sith or whatever. But yeah. Then a friend of mine told me I should watch Rebels, which I hadn't watched, and that will give context to what's going to happen in this series. Now, I watched the first 2 episodes, not watching Rebels, and I did not care for anybody but Ahsoka because I didn't know any of the other characters. I didn't know who Sabine was, so when they introduced her and she had long hair and apparently cut her hair or whatever, like I didn't get the meaning of that. The mural in the beginning in like the first episode, I was like, okay, who are these guys? Hera, like I didn't care about any of these characters because I didn't watch the series. So I stopped, and in between, because it was weekly releases, so in between I think the 3rd and 4th episode, or the 2nd and 3rd episode, I just took a weekend and I just watched Rebels. like it's I think it's like 3 seasons, not that long, not that many episodes, I don't believe, and they're like half hour or 20 minutes episodes. So, and then I like skipped some episodes that didn't have anything to do with anything. So, so I got the gist of the series. I watched the whole, like more or less the whole series, and it was okay. It was a really good series. I'm glad I watched it. As a cartoon, it works excellently. As a TV show, not so much. So as I'm watching the Rebels, cartoon, I remember why I kind of stopped watching like episodic cartoon shows, at least for kids, because like Castlevania. Beautiful. And Cyberpunk, like there's a lot of animation that's made for adults that's really good, but Rebels obviously was made for kids, and it's still pretty good. Like an adult can still watch it and enjoy it. It's just like episode to episode, week to week, you're kind of like, okay, this is like a kind of routine, and kind of like the story's not that great, week to week or episode to episode, it's not really that great. So you're like, okay, but it's still a cartoon, so you kind of let it get away with a bunch of stuff, and it introduced a bunch of new things, like the world between worlds or whatever that Darth Vader was in. If you watched Rebels, and then also now in Ahsoka. So if you didn't watch Rebels, it's that episode. So it introduced some cool stuff that was cool, I guess. Darth Maul back, and anyway, point is, sorry, spoilers for Rebels as well, but point is, I watched it, and it was good. It was a good series, but I wouldn't say it's like really good, like what do you say, like writing, right, or episodic television. I would say it's good to know what's going on in the series. So literally, when the 3rd episode came on for Ahsoka, I was very much well invested. I went and I also rewatched the other 2 episodes, and I was invested in Sabine. I was invested in Hera and her son, that now I know whose son it is, like all these things. And I'm like, okay, cool. And even when they got to the planet and Hera's son started using the Force to find Ahsoka, I was like, that's awesome. He has the Force, of course. His father, was really cool with the Force or whatever. Anyway, then, like everyone, I'm excited to meet Thrawn and meet Ezra. Now, initially, I was excited when I didn't know who they were, really, because I hadn't watched Rebels. So I was just like, okay, cool, there's going to be a good introduction, yada, yada. But even for me, that I was excited to see them again in the series, Thrawn still kind of acts like the cartoon version, which is good in some ways, bad in other ways. Like, he'll say things like, he'll try to, like, be ahead of the enemy, or he'll concede some things like, oh, it's good, let them go, or whatever. Like, he did that in the show, in the cartoon, and I was like, what the hell? You're just going to let him go? He's like, yeah, I'm trying to win a war, not a battle, blah, blah, blah. So, you're like, oh, this guy's smart. In this show, it seemed more like stupid. Like, he'd be like, oh, yeah, we're not going to underestimate somebody, or they're not going to be a problem because we're going to, dispatch of them or do this or do that. And then he'd do, like, the opposite of whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Send 2 droids or 2 battle whatever the fuck they're called, TIE fighters. Like, it's just stupid things. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. The cool thing I did like some things. Sorry to rag on it. There are some things I liked. I like the whole witch sisters thing. That's like if you play the game, what is the name of the game? All right, Jedi Survivor. That's the name of the game. Jedi Survivor or Fallen Order. Yeah, Fallen Order is really the one that I've played first. So they go to Dathomir, whatever, that planet. The sisters from that planet are, basically Darth Maul's planet. And it's cool. Like, if you've watched the Rebels and also if you've played the game, you know that they have, like, this mechanic of, like, possession or some kind of, like, basically, like, zombie-esque thing. And they kind of do that here, which is with zombie troopers, which I haven't seen before. So I give the show props for that because I hadn't seen that live action. That's cool. Zombie troopers are cool. Other than that, narrative choices that were taken. I mean, it's been years since the series, even in Ahsoka, it has been years. So Sabine trying to learn how to use the Force, I guess, was with Ahsoka at some point, but we don't get flashbacks to their time together. So we don't know what happened between them. And so it's alluded that something happened between them, but they never get to it. And I feel like we should have spent a little more time if we're trying to invest in their relationship. And Ahsoka kind of feels one note, which is like just flat. Like I liked her in The Mandalorian and other shows when she showed up, Rosario Dawson specifically playing her. And it was really good. Like she gave a little bit of energy, but in this one, it just felt like she's old, she's been through a lot, and, like that kind of energy, which I guess is what they were going for, but I just wish that they'd have, like, flashbacks of when she was the Ahsoka that even people that watch the series remember, because I remember her in the Clone Wars, she was a lot more bubbly. Even in Rebels, she was a lot more, bubbly, happy, like, more not just stoic and, like, angry or whatever. And she's been through a lot. I'm not going to hold you. She has been through a lot, but even so, it's, like, still, like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like we should see things that allude to who she is, Like, I felt like the Ahsoka that I saw in this series is different from the cartoon that I've seen her regularly. Even from the, the other series, like Mandalorian, when she showed up or whatever. Like, even from there, it's just a jarring difference. And there was no explanation for it, which is why I'm like, what the hell? The story elements, like I said, that really play bad is because I feel like the show is written as if it's still a cartoon, but it's now live action. I don't know if that makes sense. But in cartoons, you can get away with, like I said, when I watched it, just back and forth, every episode, the bad guy getting away, bad guy not really doing much to the good guys, even though he has them in their grasp. But, we need to keep the show going, so nothing really happens. So you're like, okay, cool. Eventually something will happen in, like, the end of the season or whatever. But in this show, it felt like they were doing that and for nothing. Like, the show, I feel like it did nothing. Like, the whole series did nothing. It set up, I guess, a second season with some, like, things that just, I don't know. Like, it's hard to care. If you're, for example, like, even as a person, like I said, I watch Rebels and I've watched the Clone Wars just to catch up with this thing, and also Tales of the Jedi. Watch Tales of the Jedi if you can. It's a really good series, and they're only like 15-minute episodes, and there's like 6 episodes. It's really good, but yeah, like I've watched that stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is like, like every show, even the animated series, like Tales of the Jedi that I just mentioned. I watched the first 15-minute episode. I'm like, okay, this is okay. This is good. This is like the birth of Ahsoka and her whole origins or whatever. And then, like, towards the 3rd episode, and it's like about, spoilers for Tales of the Jedi. And it's about Count Dooku and Qui-Gon Jinn and when they were younger, and how Count Dooku became evil and started listening to Senator Palpatine and him killing the young Yoda woman lady. I was like, yo, I am invested in this show. And, like, the townspeople in that whole council, like, basically like a senator, and they had his son, and the son was like, why is this district like this? And it's because of the father, and it's like the Jedi are supposed to protect the senator guy who's basically treating these poor people bad. So I was just like, wow, no wonder he went against the Jedi. So, like, it's a whole aspect of Star Wars that I just, I never really paid attention to because I don't read the books or anything like that. I just watch the movies. So it's like, a whole nother side of Star Wars that I found cool and interesting, and opened up this whole like idea of what I thought a Jedi or a Sith was, and like just awesome, cool scenes also, like of lightsaber fights and stuff like that. So I felt like that, even though it was an animated series, did more in 15 minutes each episode than this entire show did, like the Ahsoka series. Like, there were some cool battles, you know, more or less, kind of. Like, they don't compare to, again, even though I used to hate the prequel fights, like the Darth Maul fight and the fucking Revenge of the Sith, the third fight between even Obi-Wan and Grievous. Like, those fights just live on in my head as, like, great choreographed, you know, dances. You know, this Balin, I love Balin, but his fight with Ahsoka was yeah. And yeah, but still, like, Balin was more of a presence, like a evil presence, and also interesting because I don't know what his angle is, what he's trying to do, and that thread they just left dangling until the end, until the last 6 seconds of the episode, and I didn't understand it either. Like, why is he standing in front of a statue? It probably has to do something with Clone Wars or something I haven't watched. But again, if you haven't watched these cartoons, this is a continuation of that stuff, which again is great, but I still it still doesn't fulfill like moments that you've been waiting for if you've watched these cartoons, right? Like, for example, for me, watching Rebels and the fact that at the end it's like, oh wow, Ezra and Thrawn are just gone. Wow, like that's crazy. And everybody went their separate ways. But like Sabine betrays Ahsoka to meet up with Ezra, who she's been wanting to meet up with, and I'm like, okay, makes sense. In the series, they kind of never really got together, but you felt like a chemistry. I thought, okay, now, you know, they're adults. It's been years. She hasn't seen them. Chemistry. But it's like no chemistry, and they're like friends still, kind of. And it's just like, oh, okay, now she's seen Ezra after all this time, and it's like, okay, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Like, come on, guys. Come on. Give me something for the build-up. We see Thrawn. Thrawn has like an okay entrance, you know, like, this is supposed to be an epic bad guy that you guys are building up, especially for people that don't know this guy. And it's just like, meh, here you go. You know, like, I don't know. And I felt like, again, they handled Balin a little bit better, but we didn't get anything, like, not a lot out of maybe 2 episodes worth of him. And I'm like, I want more Balin. I want more of the girl Sith, too. I forget her name. I'm sorry. But, yeah, like, it was really, really good. Like, that aspect of Star Wars I really liked. And we didn't get, you know, what's up with the guy who turned to dust? Like, who is that? What is that? What? Like, what's going on? Like, no explanations for these things. And then again, I guess we're building to season 2, but it's like, am I really going to watch season 2 when season 1 was like, meh? You know? I don't know. And in the end, I don't know, like, the character progression for, like, these are things that you, like, live action shows have to think about for their character progressions. For Ahsoka, for example, at the end of the series, I feel like she's the same person as the beginning of the series. She's maybe a little bit more forgiving and or understanding of Sabine and who Sabine is, because initially she's just like, oh, Sabine's stubborn and she's in her ways, and that's why we had to separate in the first place. But then she wanted to give her a chance or whatever, and so they got together again for her to try to train her and stuff. And then it's like, okay, and then, you know, Anakin, you know, the whole episode of Anakin is like, I didn't give up on you, don't give up on your trainee, right? And so she's like, all right, I'm not going to give up on on my trainee. I'm going to listen to her and be by her side, even though she's wrong, you know, because she's fucking wrong. I'm sorry. What did you see Ezra again? That's great. But putting the entire world at threat just because you wanted to see Ezra? Yeah, you're wrong for that. But whatever. At the end of the day, that's great. She has her back, but that's the only character progression that Ahsoka has. Like, we have no idea about what she's been up to, why she was even doing what she's doing, why she's okay just throwing her life away and being stranded on this planet with Sabine, who prior to this, you know, she was basically not talking to, and the only reason she did was to find out, you know, this orb thing. I don't know. It was a lot for nothing, I felt. And so it's still an okay series. Like I said, I would check it out if you have nothing else to do. But there was nothing really that grabbed me out of, besides the, you know, nostalgia of seeing, you know, Anakin Skywalker and that whole Clone Wars scene again, but this time live action. That's pretty much it. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, prior to all these shows, like prior to Rebels, prior to Ahsoka, I was watching Andor. And Andor, I thought, meh. But then halfway through the fucking prison sequence in that show, and I should review that show, but that show, after that, I'm like, yo, this series is fire. But there was nothing in this series that I'm like, yeah, you know, like, I don't know. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. That's all my thoughts. Sorry, they're a little jumbled and long. And, yeah, this has been a useless skill.